All right, we are live. Welcome, Pangburn peeps. We still have 8 minutes until we'll get going with the watch party, but I am just on a little early here. Welcome, welcome. Just going to make sure everyone knows I am live. Okay, they got that. Welcome back if you've been joining us on these watch parties, and if you're new to these, welcome, welcome. Aloha. For those of you who don't know, I just got back from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I was shooting a documentary for our Pangburn documentaries on the Day of the Dead. Had a little bit of a holiday. Got a bit of a tan. Let's see. Can you guys tell? Probably not. The light is very white. What have you guys... Renba says, "Hello, my friends, I'm new." Welcome, Renba. Welcome, welcome. Oh, you guys, please hit the like button on this stream. More people will see it. Like. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. Please hit the like button. I just say it a bunch of times because so many people are like, I don't think I will. But please do it. Come on, man. We are going to be watching the next chapter of Night 3 between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson with Douglas Murray in the middle. And I am drinking out of a mason jar. I drink a lot of water, but this water has a couple of those flavor drops in it. I got lemon flavor. Oh yeah. And I might have a beer for the second half. We will take a break about an hour in, and then it'll just be a break of a couple minutes, and then I will take a few calls on Skype if anyone's interested, live on the air. We've had, Soldier General 64, it is a jar of water. Let's see what we've been chatting about before we get going here. Hit that like button, hit that like button. Do it. You know you want to do it. Click like. Oh yeah. Partay. Whoopity scoopity poop. What does that even mean? Everyday FX says, as always, I am ahead of time, faster than stream. Very excited for the talk. Thank you for stopping by. Dominic Palermo says, isn't JP in rehab today? I think some of you thought that this was a new live event, but if you guys read the description of these on our Facebook page, I'm not sure if the description, I'll make sure anyone who's posting these, just make sure they clarify that this is that we're re-watching the events from last year. And I just haven't had a chance to do these watch parties, and I really wanted to do them, so that's what we're doing here. But if you want to see the watch parties we've done up to date, you can go to the YouTube channel under videos, and you'll see all of them. They're in their own playlist as well. But yes, Jordan is still in recovery. I've exchanged email with him recently, and he's still sound and strong. So. Jack Falashk says, hard to believe that people actually care what these dudes think. They are both so beside the point. If you actually can see what is going on, I won't be watching. So are you claiming that these guys don't have anything to add to humanity at all with how they speak about what they believe, what they think ought to be the next step forward for humanity, the way one ought to live? You don't think they have anything to offer? Is that what you're claiming, Jacques or Jack, if that's your real name? I think you need to read more, follow their work a little more, and it sounds like by your comment that you're coming from a place of extreme confirmation bias, or extreme ignorance to the work that these gentlemen have done. It's fine if you have specifics that you disagree with. Let's talk about that. But if you're going to make that blanket statement, it sounds pretty disingenuous. Yeah, guys, it looks we got a bunch viewing. Make sure you hit that like button for this stream. More people will see it on the channel. Helps the stream out a lot. Hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button. We got about 3 minutes before we'll get started. I have some very exciting events in the works right now that are being planned. New events. One, we just, all the speakers involved and myself solidified on a date. So you're going to start seeing some more events being announced. Really excited for that. Let's see. In this particular video we're going to be watching today, this is... Sorry, I was just got disconnected for a second there. All right, looks like I'm back. Sorry about that. I am back. All right, what are we at? We got 1 minute. Okay, cool. What we are going to start with today, though, is a new Pangburn promo video. Thought I'd play it for you guys. I'm pretty excited by how it turned out, and yeah, we're going to be producing more inspirational videos like this. You guys can let me know what you guys think. And I think I'm just sending a test message here just to make sure you guys can that we are still connected. We had some weird disconnect here, but I think everything's fine. Hello, is there anybody in there? All right, cool. Thanks for hitting that like button, guys. Again, helps out the stream. We are at 8 p.m. Can someone just confirm that you guys are reading me? Because I did have that little quick disconnect. It looks like it's telling me excellent connection now, so we will get started as soon as I get a confirmation here. Ground control to Major Tom. Can you guys hear me? Just double checking with you guys, making sure you guys can hear me. Somebody give me the thumbs up. Just going to confirm before we get going. Yeah, internet looks good. Maybe you all have just fallen off the face of the earth and your computers are still running. I'm going to check over on... Just going to confirm before we get going. Oh yeah, it looks like it's running fine. Oh yeah, I'm just looking at the stream on the other end. It looks like it's running fine. So I see your guys' comments. It's just catching up on my live stream side. Okay, I'm gonna watch the comment section here because on my... Yeah, it's weird that on the live streaming part it's not caught up with you guys, but I can see what you guys are saying here. Okay, we're all good. Cool. I'm going to minimize this a little bit. Go like that. All right, so we are going to be kicking off. Let me know what you guys think of this new promo video. I guess it's a promo video, but kind of Pangburn's next step forward and skepticism being the best foot forward for humanity. So this is the promo video. Let me know what you guys think.
We need to be able to have conversations without feeling like we're going to say something that gets us thrown in jail because people happen to be offended.
When I was a boy, I was never satisfied with not understanding why someone believed something that they claimed to believe. I always wanted to know the answer. If their answer to me didn't include evidence, or it included bad evidence, I would further question. The war of ideas is all about this. We have systems in place that can determine what is a good idea and what is a bad idea from a human well-being perspective. I believe skepticism to be the best foot forward as we move through this new era of social extremism. All right. Well, let me know what you guys think. That's the new promo video. A lot of the new live events that I am producing, I mean, so many of them that I've produced in the past have to do with skepticism anyway. But sorry, I just got some pop-up. But that's going to be a lot of the focus of the main themes that I'm going to be focusing on with the new live event promotions. Such an evil message. All right. Cool. Let's get started. Destroy it with fire. Thanks for the feedback, John Henry. Awesome. Okay, here we go. Rock and roll.
But then you're basically saying that the stupid people need their myths. We smart people on stage don't need them.
Right.
But
I actually am saying that to some degree. Look, if you're not exceptionally cognitively astute, you should be traditional and conservative. Because if you can't think well, you're going to think badly. And if you think badly, you're going to fall into trouble. And so it is definitely the case, and this has been what would you call a cliche of political belief for a long time. If you're not very smart, it's better to be conservative, because then you do what everyone else does. And generally speaking, doing what everyone else does is the path of least error moving forward. Now, that doesn't mean that rationality is unnecessary.
Nor does it mean that all conservatives are stupid.
It doesn't mean that either. Right, precisely. It doesn't mean
that
either.
Very important caveat.
Yes,
but all conservative structure.
So what Jordan's talking about here, do you guys agree with this, or should we, rather than promoting that if you don't think well, you should kind of just follow along with what people are doing, or should we have people attempting to, is it more important to promote better avenues of thinking, better ways to think, like skepticism or critical thinking? Should we be promoting these ideas, or, Jordan takes this approach of, being worried at what someone's going to do to themselves if they're thinking incorrectly. Well, that just happens all the time. People think incorrectly on things all the time. I would say Jordan thinks incorrectly when it comes to the metaphorical truth existence of God. Like he should just be talking about the potency and importance of those stories. He doesn't need to be talking about the existence of God in that sense. So let me know what you guys think of what Jordan's proposing there. Let's see. Okay. And thank you guys for engaging. Remember to like this stream, and we'll get back to it right here. Hit that like button, guys.
Structure is not the same either, and that we have many warring and incompatible versions of being conservative.
True. And this is where rationality actually does play its role. although I don't think it's best conceptualized as rationality precisely, it's definitely the case that to take Douglas's point, that we need to be bound by our traditions, but we need to be judicious in their re-representation and update, and we have to do both.
This is what, in the dialogue on religion, this is what Schopenhauer says. He describes the tragedy of the clergy.
Yeah.
He pretty much says, look, if they don't believe it, they recognize it's a very useful metaphor, but they don't need to believe it. They tell it, and he says the tragedy of the clergy is they can never admit that what they're saying is just a metaphor.
Right. Is this before or after he threw his housekeeper down the stairs?
Look, we can all find flaws.
We all have skeletons in our closet.
But yes, there is a way in which religion is what he describes as philosophy for the masses. And that if you recognize that most people are not going to spend their lives studying philosophy, they're not going to be reading about the differences between Leibniz and Kant, that religion has to do. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with that particularly, but there's a heck of an argument within there, which a lot of people will be living their lives in.
I don't think it's a good argument if you recall or just imagine what it's like to be a child, especially from the perspective of being a parent. I have two young girls, and they're very smart young girls. They're smart, but one of them is 4.5 years old and knows almost nothing, right? So she knows what I and my wife and our society tell her at some level. At what point is she going to think for herself about these fundamental questions? And she's currently spending half the day dressed up like Batgirl or Catwoman, right? So if I told her that these superheroes were real, she would believe that for the longest time. And if we lived in a cult that thought they were real, or a whole society that by dint of its geographic or linguistic isolation managed to maintain a conversation about, in this case, Batgirl and Catwoman, that they were real and that it was absolutely important to honor them, and you'd burn in hell if you failed to do this.
Well,
we would be meeting fully grown adults who believe this sort of thing.
But it seems to me, Sam, that you bring up the superhero thing quite a bit, so I think I'll go after that directly.
Yeah.
So
then I want to.
I love superheroes.
Okay, so you make the case in A Moral Landscape that an ideal is real. Because the ideal that you define an ideal is real, and the ideal is whatever maximizes well-being and gets us away from hell. You said not only is that real, you also say that's the fundamental axiom. That's the claim in The Moral Landscape. So you do make a claim that there is a real ideal. And I would say...
I wouldn't necessarily put it that way, but we are in a circumstance where things can matter, right? Consciousness is the condition in which things can matter, where there can be a range of experiences, some of which are very, very bad. If the
Jordan's taking his coat off. Things are getting serious.
word bad means anything, they're bad. And some of which are very, very good, if the word good means anything. And we are navigating in that space. We can't help but navigate or seek to navigate in that space.
Right, absolutely.
And religion is one form of conversation about that navigation problem. And I would argue
let's go back to the ideal.
often diluted one.
Whilst Jordan rolls his sleeves up.
Batgirl.
He means business now.
Batgirl and Catwoman are approximations to a higher ideal. That's what they are.
Yeah, but that's not what Sam is getting at. Sam is just saying that these are make-believe, like these are narratives, these are characters that have been created by a creative mind. And he's just drawing that analogy. Here, let's go to the chat for a bit here. Guys, thanks for chatting. Remember to hit the like button on this stream. Let's see. First, John Henry was talking about such an evil message. I think he was talking about the new Pangburn video, Destroy It with Fire. He says, I'm saying people need guidance, quote. Social engineering is actually bad. Yeah, that's what that's kind of, not social engineering, but social extremism is what the video's standing out against. I don't know what you're talking about. John Henry also says, having the Bible is a great way to start. Good God, have you read the Bible? I hope you're not talking from like you realize this is a doctrine that sanctions slavery, right? Exodus 21. If none of this book can be taken literally, and it hasn't been proven to be any holier of a book than The Night Before Christmas. So I don't know what your obsession would be with the Bible. Blith says differences in intelligence exist and they can be drastic. Jordan is right in his observation. Whether or not that should be simply accepted, I'm not sure. Yeah, so that's what I would get at. That Jordan is saying basically what he thinks is the best general rule for people like that. But his antidote, I don't think that's an excuse for people to just think badly, because people can improve their thinking. You can change your thinking. You can't change your hardware, but you can sharpen it, and you can change your thinking on issues and the way you think. That's the most important thing. And skepticism and a scientific worldview gives you that way to think, valuing evidence, valuing what is actually going on in reality. Following the Bible is social engineering. Yes. John Henry says telling people be good is not good. No, you don't tell people what to be. You tell them how to get to understand what you want to be. How to teach them how to think, not what to think, right? Fred Phlogiston says, if you think for yourself and you are dumb, you get dumber. No. A lot of people are just missing the tools of something as simple as understanding the fundamentals of skepticism. So again, skepticism is a feature that can eliminate thinking bad as long as you're relying on that system. No, I don't buy it. It's just better for them to be conservative with their thinking. They can improve this. Sam Rich says neocon Sam Harris is back. How is Sam Harris a neocon? And then he says again, two conservative Zionists duking it out with a middle finger. So tell us what you really think. Actually, you made a claim here. Substantiate it. Let's hear it, Sam. Why do you think Sam Harris is a neocon? Nicholas Golden says, if one has an IQ under 85, then I agree with Jordan. One in this instance cannot simply pull themselves up by their bootstraps and practice a type of trained rational skepticism. No, that's just not true. A young infant can practice skepticism. This is a system that can be picked up by the lowest tier IQ hardware in humanity. It has to be taught in different ways if you're dealing with people of that IQ level, but that just comes down to what models you're using to teach this. But these concepts are not, the concept of skepticism is not that hard to understand. It's like if a claim is made, there should be sufficient evidence to justify belief in that claim. It's not difficult, but this can be explained easily to children, and children can pick this up, and I think it should be. Al Brio says, dude, I guess I'm missing something, but who are you to critique either of these two guys? My name is Travis Pangburn, and I promote intellectual discourse, and I have an interest in stuff like this, and I consider myself a skeptic, and that's who I am to critique either of these two guys. Are you making an argument from authority saying that their education level is so high that their ideas should not be critiqued? Or if I am to critique them, I need to have the same level of fame or prestige in my education that they have? That's an argument from authority if that's what you're trying to get at. John Henry just makes a claim Sam Harris is wrong. And let's see if he substantiates why he thinks Sam Harris is wrong. Keith Connolly, welcome back, man. Keith Connolly says, I think if you don't think well, you may fail. You may fall into collective thought as a byproduct. Sure. I that is people who don't think well are easy pickings for dogma and religiosity. Definitely. I see what he's saying. Traditions are a safety net. Sure. Definitely. I think it's worth trying to collectively grow out of it. Yes, I couldn't agree more, Keith. John Henry says, both the other two gang up to try and convince Sam that he cannot exist in society without conforming to that society. I don't think that's the goal. I think this is honest, good faith discussion that's happening here. I don't think there's this overarching goal. If there is an overarching goal, it would be to have a discussion and see where the discussion can take us, and see if we can get closer on the main topic that we are discussing. Because people tend to be a lot closer on issues that they think they're very far apart. Like they're very close to the center of the issue. This often happens. This is the same for anyone who's holding extremist beliefs about anything. People who think Donald Trump should be killed, like, versus people who are like literally on their hands and knees sucking Donald's dick. Like there's on the extreme ends of this. You realize these people mostly believe almost the same things about everything, minus a few differences in their worldviews. And those differences can be jotted down on a piece of paper like this, and you can go point by point and see how close you can get on those particular things. Douglas Murray versus Eric Weinstein, better moderator. So I think you're talking about Brett Weinstein. And that's from Scott Levenberg. He says, I'm torn. They're both great, but I think you're talking about Brett. Brett slightly edges out Douglas because he had no issue with telling both of them that they've erred. Yeah, I mean, that's Brett's game. No one really listens more clearly and pays attention more clearly than Brett. He's just that kind of guy, definitely, when he's analyzing things. Very analytical with how people are thinking and the way they come up with concepts, and following Jordan's thought pretzels. Like sometimes people can't really do that, and they end up just like shaking their head because they don't want to try and unravel that. But Brett loves unraveling that. So yeah, I think Brett did a great job. And Douglas is I didn't have him booked as a moderator, and I had him booked as a third speaker on stage. But after all the hype all the events got, it kind of, in the conversations at dinner and stuff, we kind of chatted about, and a little bit before that, Douglas would kind of be there to offer his piece on whatever's being discussed, but also act a little bit as a moderator. So that's how those conversations went. Okay, I'll get back to chat in a bit, but let's watch a little bit more here. Looks like we got some Yang gangers. Of course, some of you might know that I've said that if I was an American citizen, I'd be voting for Andrew Yang if I had a chance to vote for him. And that's how I feel about that. We can get into politics a little bit if you want. Looks like we might have some of our fuckweasels in the chat here. I'm just cleaning this up a little bit. Guys, if you're going to engage in the chat, make sure you're engaging in the topics that we're dealing with here. And you won't be blocked. All right, let's watch some more video.
Return to this with a biblical idea. I'm fairly sure from personal experience that a lot of parents are perfectly content with bringing their children up vaguely within the story they've inherited. And at some point, the children realize that the fairy doesn't bring them money when their teeth fall out. And at some point, maybe around the same time or a bit later, they discover that Santa Claus doesn't really come down the chimney. And at some point, they realize that actually the whole religious thing is a kind of metaphor, but it's got them through the formative years in some way, often with terrible damage along the way, I concede that, but also with something else. And I'm struck by the number of people, and this is why I share some of what I think is Jordan's concern about the possibility of the world you're envisaging, which is, I can think of a lot of parents now, in my country and other countries as well, who I'm just very struck. They themselves are kind of baby boomer or 60s atheists, humanists, whatever. And I start to notice, for instance, that they're enrolling their children in Christian schools. And I say to them, why are you doing this? And they have fairly coherent arguments along the, way, the lines of the one I've just had. Look, I don't particularly believe this myself, but I think it's a pretty good way to bring up the kids. It's a structure of a kind. And I'm not sure, I can find all sorts of flaws in that. But enough people are doing it that it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, well, I would say yes. It speaks to a real failure of imagination and effort in the secular community to produce truly non-embarrassing alternatives.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is across the board. This is not just school. This is how do you conduct a funeral? How do you get married? You know, all of the what rites of passage can you offer a 13-year-old?
What are you doing here? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Just to be the first people in history to have absolutely no explanation for what we're doing at all. Is a big moment.
Yeah.
I don't buy that at all. I mean, Sam's shaking his head, yep. I think Jordan's kind of nodding his head, yep. To say we don't know what we're doing, that's just absurd. We have a better understanding of what we're doing than we ever have. We're trying to create harmony as much as we can and eliminate dangerous dogmatism. And I think maybe they're talking about, like, I don't know. What do you guys think of that? What do you think they're referring to when they're talking about what are we doing? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we are just pleasure-driven beings moving by the chemistry that dictates how we move. So I guess we're just moving from potential pleasure to potential pleasure in my estimation. But what do you guys think we are doing here? What are we doing? What is humanity doing? Let's do a little more in the chat. Let's start. Where should we start? Andrew Thopill, welcome back. Sorry, I'm burping a bit. Oh, we're still talking about dumb here. Echo says, I think Jordan, thanks for the comment. Keep commenting, guys, and please like this stream. Helps the stream out a lot. Echo says, I think Jordan is saying that superheroes embody the divine qualities, and it doesn't matter if they are real or not. The end result is that you aspire to be like them regardless of their existence. Yeah, but you never get to know much about the superhero, right? You know some things about it, but you don't necessarily know, like, how they behave when someone they love dies, how they work out who's going to do what chores around the house, like just like the humanist stuff that goes on in life. You don't really get that from the superhero myths. And then the religious texts try to set up systems to show you how to do this, but unfortunately there's a lot of dangerous bullshit in these religious texts because they were written by Bronze Age peasants and people that just didn't have the reasonability skills that we have now. So that's why it's so easy, if to any literal interpretation of these texts, to just look at them and be like, holy, look at all this, look at all these crocks of shit in this on this page. Yeah. So, and I mean, for any modern day person who's reading something, let's just say the Bible, reading the Bible, any of you that are in this live chat right now can write a better character, a more moral character than is depicted in the Bible of what Yahweh is, or the Quran, or the, whatever text it is. You can write a more moral character because our moral systems are superior now because they've evolved to be superior. Um, that's just the reality. Trying to make these texts, trying to create these ideas where these texts mean something so deep that we can't escape the text and move on to other narratives because if we lose that, we're going to start killing each other or something like that. I've heard Jordan talk about this before, and that's just not the case. We don't see this happen when people lose their faith in religiosity. Blith says to Andrew Thopil, the way I see it, people like Matt Dillahunty are always capable of healthy skepticism, but sometimes religious upbringing prevents it from manifesting itself. Others simply are. Matt's I consider Matt one of the greatest skeptics on this planet right now, and that's why I promote him so much. So, yeah, you'd have to give some examples where you think Matt's skepticism has failed him, but there are few people on this planet that understand skepticism as good as Matt Dillahunty. Yeah, but skepticism is not a hard. So this next kind of tour of events that I'm putting together is all about this, about how skepticism. It's an easy concept to grasp if you just if if you just don't have a lack of imagination. If you buy into the system and understand why it works, it doesn't. And it's not. And you start applying it to everything. You apply it to how you emotionally react to things. So if someone says something to you and the way you are acting now is that you just emotionally react and blast out at them, as opposed to applying a bit of skepticism to your emotional reaction before you actually outwardly react. Skepticism can be applied to your own emotional states as well, and it's fine to be skeptical of them. Scott Levenberg says, Doe, yes, you're wrong. Weinstein brother Brett is the correct answer. Thanks for clarifying. Yep, it's all good. Andrew Thopil says, Matt Dillahunty was one of those individuals at one point. I don't think we can make absolute statements about an individual's potential for change. Yeah, I mean, well, I would say every person on this planet their minds can be changed. Minds can be changed minus some minds that are being affected by disorders, mental disorders, psychological disorders. Those can be affected, but typically medication is required to help with this. McCallie Alley says, didn't you scam Sam Harrison a bunch of people? No, I didn't scam Sam Harrison a bunch of people. You need to do some more reading. This looks like a troll account. We'll see. Don't be the cunt in the room, man. The cunt in the room is the person that tries to poison conversation. Samuel Hood says, do you think it's disingenuous for people like Jordan Peterson to say if someone like Sam Harris embraces an ethic of not killing or not stealing, they are a Christian? Yes, that is very disingenuous. The treat others as you would like to be treated is a notion that's been around for a very long time, much before Christianity. These are ideas that have had to exist in order for humanity to get to where we are. Or to even get to where we were 10,000 years ago, or 30,000 years ago. So, yeah, I think that is disingenuous, and I think it's a cop-out. People come up with statements like this when they get backed into a corner requiring evidence. But Jordan's argument for the metaphorical truth in God is basically doesn't require evidence in the same way that anyone claiming that an actual God exists. So it's a little bit more tricky. Clutch Like Kobe says, Travis, I'm 40. So? What does that? What do you mean? Maybe I missed something. Yeah, Bliff, I try to get all these, but the chat bounce around all the time. If I do misrepresent what you say, feel free to re-clarify in the chat. The chat's this screen jumps around all the time. Okay, cool. Let's get back to some more chat here. How are we doing on this stream? Make sure you guys like the stream again. Please do that. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel. We create new content all the time. Make sure you head over to Facebook at Pangburn Inspire on Facebook. That's our main Pangburn page. That's where all of the daily conversations go down. These are this group that typically engages there is a very good group of people who really engage in good faith discussion. And obviously, you'll get a few people that aren't sometimes, but in general, it's a great place to have good discussions. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, at the Pangburn on Twitter is where I'm at. At Team Pangburn is our Pangburn account, newly created today. But yeah, hit me up on Twitter, follow me, tweet at me. I'll usually respond, and I'll follow you back, definitely. Let's see. Looks like the trolls went away. All right, let's watch some more.
Yes.
And
That's the
But
not,
I mean,
that-
that sharpens up my concern perfectly, because to shrink back from that moment and resort to one of the pseudo stories of the past, I consider to be a failure of nerve, both intellectually and morally.
So let's go back to the superhero idea. One of the things you might notice about superheroes is that some of them are actually deities, right? So in the Marvel pantheon, you have Thor, for example, and so there's a very thin line between the idea of a superhero and the idea of a god, especially if you think about it in a polytheistic manner. So the modern superheroes and the Greek gods, for example, share a tremendous number of features in common. And so here's something to think about. So there's a reason that people admire superheroes, and it's because they act out parts of the hero archetype. That's the technical reason. They're obviously acting something out because that's how you can tell they're superheroes. They share some set of characteristics across the set of superheroes that makes them superheroes. Now the question might be, what is the essential element of being a superhero that makes you a superhero? And the answer, the way that was solved historically, is that as polytheistic societies developed, and that was usually a consequence of isolated tribes coming into contact with one another, they each had their separate deities. And then over the course of time, those deities warred in actual wars with people, but also conceptually. And out of that polytheistic framework was extracted something that was vaguely monotheistic, as all of those cultures came together to try to determine what their highest ideal should be. So that's the God of gods, that's a way of thinking about it, or the King of kings, that's another way of thinking about it. And that's an implicit ideal.
Well,
and you could make the case that there's nothing more...
Tell that to the Hindus. You tell that to the Hindus. I mean, we've got 1.2 billion people, or maybe it's 1.4 now, who are operating in a religiously saturated system.
Let's see if Sam really kicked Jordan in the balls here, or if Jordan's got a good response to this.
That does not conform to that ideal. There is no one on top of it all.
Well, they're still associated.
Arguably, there's three on top of it all. But
there's still an attempt to generate that polytheistic, to integrate that polytheistic reality underneath a single rubric, or you have nothing but continual dissociation of the culture. And I'm not saying this is necessary.
That's a pretty good description of what's going on in India at the moment.
Well, I'm not saying that this is inevitable either. And there is a tension. The problem, this is Nietzsche's observation, and Mircea Eliade as well. The problem with extracting out the highest God from the panoply of gods is the ideal becomes so abstract that it disappears. That's the death of God. And Eliade has tracked that phenomena over multiple cultures. It's not something that's unique to the West. So the danger of that abstraction is that it gets too abstract and disappears and leaves us in the situation that Douglas just pointed out.
Can I throw us back to the key, issue of Elton John's glass, which you came up with the other night? Because there's something I wanted to add to that. If perhaps you'd
Jordan didn't really address what Sam said. If you guys think he did, let me know in the comments of what you think Jordan's response to Sam bringing up Hinduism there.
Explain why I said Elton John's glass just now.
Well, it came back to this question of what makes something valuable, and I used as
Ghost Boy, if you're on Twitter, just tweet at me, and I'll let you know what I think.
an example in Vancouver on one of those nights. If I had a glass here, which I said was actually it was the glass that Elton John used the last time he played in this theater. Suddenly, it seems to be a more valuable glass. And then Jordan and I argued about just what the status of that value was. I don't know where you want to take this, but yeah.
Well, it's just one thing in particular, which is that the whole issue of what it is you give value to. And let's say that glass was demonstrated for a time to having been drunk from by Elton John at his final concert or latest farewell tour, whatever.
Yes.
So that's already a glass with some meaning. Let's say that over the years, the whole attribution of that glass becomes debatable. But over a long period of time, a lot of things are going to have happened around it. And to stretch this to breaking point, possibly, let's say at some point people lose their lives over whether that is Elton John's glass or not. Well, let's say that people start to lose blood.
Let's not just say that. Let's recognize that is the world we're living in with respect to other religions.
So the problem is that we end up, when we're talking about religion, it's the same thing when you're talking about land. You're not just talking about any inherent worth. You're talking also about the worth of things people have given up for this.
Yeah.
And so we end up giving the layers of things. Well, no, it's more than that. We inherit more and more layers of the meaning because other people before us have given that meaning to it. So that by the time you have this object, it's an object of worth, even if it's of no worth in itself at all, but because of the amount of worth that people before you have given to it. And that seems to some extent what we're doing with the religion discussion.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so that.
Yes, but this is an argument for tradition, right? Our elders really value this tradition of chopping off a cow's head on a full moon because they believe it satisfies the moon god, right? And then the younger generations grow up and they say, yeah, there's no evidence that this is actually satisfying any moon god. Then you should just do away with that tradition. The amount of weight the elders have put on that tradition, it doesn't matter. It matters if it passes the skepticism test. It's like, do we actually like doing this, or like you can restructure. You can throw out or restructure traditions if you need to, but some of this stuff just doesn't need to be around. It's useless garbage. Samuel Hood says, I think Jordan conceded a good degree there. Yeah, I agree. Oh, it looks like What's on Second agrees with you as well. Welcome back, Ted. Ted says, Keith, check out Peter Boghossian. Yeah, check out Peter Boghossian. He's interesting. Tiny Rick says, Jordan and Sam are not a perfect match for intellectual discussion. They are both on completely different programs, but maybe that is good. Yeah, I think it can get a little with these two guys. I would say it's Jordan and anyone though, because Jordan is a thought pretzel thinker. Like he creates these very very intricate thought pretzels when he's coming up with something to say, and he creates these kind of like a mad scientist, and then delivers and brings them all together and delivers this interesting conclusion. Whereas Sam just kind of speaks as though he has pre-authored what's coming out of his mouth. He's just that way, and it's always very clear. And Jordan is less clear, but Jordan also gets into the very deep, fine details of each proposition he's dealing with. Let's see. Mind Churning Candidate says, Travis, thank you. I don't think people give you enough credit for bringing the intellectual, the Avengers together for these discussions. Thank you, Nick Fury. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I love doing stuff like this, and translating it into Arabic and Spanish and getting these translations out to the rest of the world. I think these conversations really do improve a lot of people's well-being around this planet, and I think intellectual discourse is the way you get to what is a good idea or a bad idea. It's basically the tool to eradicate bad ideas. So thanks for the nod. Let's see. Scott Levenberg says they operate on a different level of abstraction by default. Jordan is most concrete here when he uses examples from Sam's book. Yeah, I can agree with that. Okay, it looks like there's another. Looks like this is another conversation going on. I'd probably have to go back pretty fast. Kapesh N says, as someone with Hindu roots, Jordan completely missed Sam's point. Hinduism actually promotes a pantheistic view, valuing individuality over conformity. Yeah, Sam should have really jumped in there and pushed Jordan on that. Like, come on, man! It's like this is an opportunity to really put Jordan in a really awkward position, and you got to push there, and that's part of having a discussion. That's part of engaging in the war of ideas. You can put the person that you're having the ideological war in a really difficult spot, and you can kill him ideologically, metaphorically. But you got to take those opportunities. But it's good to see. I think they both were exposed a little bit there, where Sam should have been on that, and I think and not let him get away with it. But let's see. Maybe Sam comes back to it. I can't remember if he does. Thank you guys so much for commenting. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up on this stream. It looks like a lot of you have. Thank you guys so much for that. Right on. For those of you who want to support what we do at Pangburn further, you can go to patreon.com/Pangburn and become a patron. Patrons are going to be playing a pretty decent role in some decision making with regards to new live events that take place. And so if you want to be involved in that, a part of that, become a patron. Would love to have you. Yeah, what else was I going to plug? I was going to plug something else. Can't remember. Doesn't matter. Let's get back to the video. Where are we at in this stream? 53. Okay.
That's extraordinarily productive, I think. So, see, when you start with the hypothesis of facts, then you kind of have to define what a fact is. And so I think the simplest way of doing that to begin with is that there's a set of objective facts, and that's the facts about objective reality. You can think about that from a scientific perspective. And we're going to agree that that exists, although it's very complicated and difficult to understand. That exists as one set of constraints on what we can do and what we can't do. That's the objective world. And then on top of that, and this is where things get very, very complicated, you have this layered system of meaning, which is partly a manifestation of these layers of the nervous system that I described, but also partly a manifestation of those layers of the nervous system operating in social space over vast periods of time. So that would be the sociological agreement. That's all layered on top of the objective world, and it actually constitutes part of the lens through which you view the world, to the degree where you actually see the layering in the thing. So like when you go to a museum and you look at Elvis Presley's guitar, you don't look at the guitar and think that's Elvis Presley's guitar. That's not how your brain works. You actually see Elvis Presley's guitar. It's an act of perception, so it becomes built right into your nervous system. Even though the fact that that is Elvis Presley's guitar, and the reason that that's valuable is because of a sociological agreement about what position Elvis Presley occupied in the dominance hierarchy that we're all part of. And so what you see when you look at an artifact like that is you see a layer of dominance hierarchy overlaid on top of an objective reality. And that's actually your phenomenal reality. Now, the thing that's so interesting is that that layer of perception that's mediating between the facts and you has a structure. And that's the structure that I've been insisting is a narrative. And I think Sam thinks it's a narrative too, because his fundamental ethic is that you should act in a way which means to embody a mode of being, which means to be a personality that moves us from hell to something approximating heaven.
Okay,
and
but
that's
what,
not
what
a
I'm,
fact.
Jordan, what I'm struggling to understand, what I don't understand is how any of that is a counterpoint to my concern about religion. So, because I agree with all that. I mean, there are some caveats I would issue. For instance, it's quite possible to walk into a museum, be shown a guitar, not know it's Elvis Presley's guitar, and then be told it's Elvis Presley's guitar, and you can see in real time the change in significance. So that you can see the layers of the perceptual, the meaning accrue. You might actually not even, you might know who Elvis Presley is and not care, right? So there are many different things on the menu here, as opposed to just beholding awestruck Elvis Presley's guitar.
Sam,
and the same is true of the Jesus story or anything else that people, you can find layers of engagement with it that may be more and less useful.
Yes.
My fundamental concern is that the way you are tending to dignify the religious subset of stories as being foundational, necessary, we criticize at our peril, is giving people license to believe things that they clearly shouldn't believe, things that are intrinsically divisive, intrinsically less than optimal as far as organizing an individual human life. We can do better than Christianity on almost every question, with the possible exception of building churches.
Okay, so
right?
the first thing is,
Let's see if Jordan deals with this. Sam just said we can do better on every plane basically than what Christianity has to offer. I agree with him on that. Like, it's just there's so much bullshit and just barbaric nonsense that Christianity is based on. It's like, okay, well what things do you think we couldn't do better on? What things are you worried about losing? Just the idea, the inspiration of it? Well, we get inspiration from many different narratives and art forms. Okay, let's go back to the chat. First of all, Andrew Thopil says, are you still doing the book giveaways? I will be giving one book away tonight, and because Douglas Murray is on the stage, it will be The Strange Death of Europe. So if you want to win that book, Strange Death of Europe, just engage in the conversations that are happening in the chat, and be a good faith conversationalist, and I will consider picking you by the time this is all over. I think I pick it about an hour 45 in. Ted says, lol, you can kill him. Yeah, if you're in a ideological battle with someone, you want to kill what you believe to be the bad idea or the wrong position, right? And you can't kill it if you don't have skepticism and reason on your side. So it's part of the goal. Scott Levenberg says this is a good concrete start here. Cord Funk says you don't feel like relying on Patreon is a risky move. No, I haven't had any problems with Patreon, to be honest. I know that a lot of creators have left Patreon. I haven't really had any problems. I've heard, I will say this, that a lot of people who, there's been some people boycott Patreon and be very public about it. I don't really agree with any of that. But a lot of my patrons left with those people, because a lot of people who were patrons of Sam or patrons of Jordan or Dave Rubin, and there was a good chunk that were also supporting me. So that kind of hurt. But I'm still on that platform. But if you guys do want to donate through PayPal or anything, pangburncontest@gmail.com. If you want to ever send a donation, I'll write that in here. pangburncontest@gmail.com. If you ever want to send a donation through oops, I spelled it wrong. Contest. Wow. I need to go back to kindergarten. Pangburn.contest@gmail.com. Where are we? What's on second says, I chatted with 5 or 6 random people before the event started. They were all there for JP. They had only heard of Sam Harris much more recently. I don't understand why JP is so popular. Well, I mean, you should look into Jordan Peterson's work in clinical psychology. I think he's one of the best voices in clinical psychology, best communicators out there. Just look at some of his videos on it. What he's done with self-authoring, I think, is highly useful and next level stuff when dealing with depression and certain psychological disorders. So in that realm, I think he's been great. And he's a great live public speaker. He's exciting, and he's written one of the most famous, best-selling books on how to be, how you ought to be, or how you ought to live. 12 Rules for Life, just recently. So he became very popular, and a lot of people enjoyed and liked his book. And I think a lot of people like him too because he is anti-PC culture, and he's very vocal about it, and he's made a lot of these PC culture nonsense brigade people look pretty dumb publicly on big stages on TV and whatnot. So I think that added a lot to his popularity too. Scott Lovenberg says, you're trying to kill us. Yes, I am. I'm trying to kill all of you with poison. Maybe this is poison. Luckily, I am immune. Ted says that hierarchy isn't objective if you ask nature. It kills us without bias. What's a second says, do you believe in God? Let me think. I don't have a good answer right now. Let me get back to you on that. Okay. Oh, this is about the people you were talking to when you were at the event. Well, thanks for attending the event. It was crazy, man. This one was 8,500 people live. That was nuts. I could not believe that we sold that many tickets, and it was very successful. The one after, I'll talk about that more, but the one after in London was not financially successful, but still was kind of like still a lot of people, but we went really big on the venue, and there were some major ticketing problems, and still possibly some just some outstanding issues that could have been taken care of in a different way, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Scott, let's see. Kelpesh N says the hierarchy Jordan insists on is what can be suppressing. Skepticism would question whether it is really Elvis's guitar or a replica. Well, yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, you don't want to get into cynicism, right? So if it was labeled to be Elvis's guitar and it was cataloged, it showed the information, a skeptic could accept what is being presented as, sure, that's more than likely Elvis's guitar. The level of certainty does not have to be absolute certainty to accept propositions like that or accept truths like that. Ted says he has a major lag. Let's see. Am I lagging? Maybe I'm lagging. I don't know. Okay, what else we got here? Zero Carton says, Pangburn, I would argue that the ancient texts, such as the Bible, are very real. taking into account a harsh reality of older times. Definitely. They're definitely taking into account a harsh reality of older times, and the evidence of that is definitely in the text. Definitely written by men, and men who claim to be divinely inspired to add a certain level of divinity to what they were writing, and because they wanted people to listen and listen to these laws that they were writing down and these tenets that they thought were useful. Some are absolute shit, and some are pretty good. I mean, thou shall not steal. Yeah, you shouldn't be stealing. This is something that's been woven into Western law around the world. Cord Funk says Patreon also takes 5 to 12% of the supporters' money. Why not set up your own system as an alternative at least? I'm not saying ditch Patreon, but maybe it would be a good idea to create an alternative. I think you're totally right, Cord Funk. There will be a new website being launched, new Pangburn website, and I do plan on having something on there, some kind of subscription or some kind of way for people to support new content. Definitely, I agree with you. And then Zero Carton also goes on to getting back to the Bible thing. Zero Carton always says, which in my view is much closer to the real human instinct that modern day Western society, which has been blinded a bit by the commodities of the time. I don't think it's blinded by the commodities. I think we're in another technological enlightenment, another intellectual enlightenment right now. I think it is becoming. I've talked a lot about this for the past 2 years, but right now it's becoming popular to think, popular to engage in ideas. With that comes this explosion of PC culture, which is hard to navigate. But the PC cultureness of people is people just being incorrect of how to do it, but trying to do it, trying to be involved in the war of ideas. Obviously there's some horribleness that comes along with that if you're going the PC route, which I think will be weeded out. I think people will get sick of this because I think it's reached its limit, and eventually extremisms die. We see this in almost every religion. Things start getting better and better and better, and all of a sudden the religion disappears from history, or it's just something that's taught historically. Now we're talking free will. Where are we at? Okay, we're at hour and 7 minutes. Let's take our halftime break. If anyone's interested in chatting with me on Skype, I am available. You can see my Skype ID right above the video there. Just add me, send me a message on there. I actually have to open Skype. Let's get this open up. Maybe there's someone trying to message me on there. And if anyone's interested in talking on the air, we can have a chat. But please don't call until I get back. Just gonna take a quick bathroom break, and we'll be right back. Make sure you guys like this stream. It helps everything out a lot. Really appreciate you guys stopping by to have some conversations with me and engaging in the chat and having good faith discussion with each other. We need more of this, and thank you guys so much for being so great. I will be right back with you. Just give me a minute. Did you guys check out my Fashion Courage pants? Oh yeah. It looks like cowhide. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. For anyone that's just come on, we're just taking a quick break here. Quick pee break. Let's see. And I guess what I can do now. Thank you guys so much for liking the stream. Means a lot. Awesome stuff. Just gonna check this. Got a bunch of notifications. Okay, you know what? I have chosen a winner for tonight's free book. This is someone who's been making some really good observations. And I think this is their first time engaging in one of these live streams. So the winner tonight of Douglas Murray's The Strange Death of Europe, Immigration, Identity, and Islam. The winner of the book is going to, drumroll please, Zero Carton. Zero Carton, you are the winner. Zero Carton. All you have to do to claim your book, everyone say congrats to Zero. All you have to do to claim your book is go over to the Pangburn Facebook page at Pangburn Inspire and send us a message with your address, and we will ship this book to you wherever you are on the planet. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind. My voice is a little bit behind the chat here. So Zero Carton, you have won. Awesome. There we go. Hearts, hearts, hearts. All right. Yeah. Oh, and something to help these streams out, guys. If you see that we have a live stream coming up, or if you come to the stream, share it with your friends. It would be great to get some more people out for these, and it's a pretty nice amount right now. But you know, it'd be nice for the YouTube channel to get some more out here. So make sure you share them with your friends. And again, Zero, just head over to facebook.com/Pangburn. And send us a message with your address, and we will get that book shipped to you. Okay. It doesn't look like anyone's interested in calling in on Skype tonight, so I think we'll just roll on to try and hammer at some more of this video, if that's all right with you guys. And yeah, again, thank you guys so much for engaging. This is awesome. Oh yeah, and you'll notice I am not wearing my Paperboy hat tonight. I went just bare naked on the top of my head, so... Right on.
The first thing is that I deeply agree with you that that mechanism can go wrong. Okay, so you have the objective world, and it's one set of constraints, and then you have this interpretive structure. And I'm not saying that that interpretive structure is infallible. It clearly isn't, and neither is the process that gives rise to it. You see this, for example, in conditions like manic depressive disorder with religious delusions or schizophrenia. You see what you see in those situations is a pathologization of that overlay of meaning. That can clearly happen.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now the question is, what do we do about that? How do we keep those perceptual structures, which are somewhat arbitrary, how do we keep them functional? And this is, I think, where your discussion of rationality is so important, particularly when you say rationality is what enables us to establish what we agree on in our shared reality. Okay.
One thing I'll mention too, if you guys are interested in like helping what we do at Pangburn is just trying to promote intellectual discourse, conversation. A good way to do that is to follow us on social media, on Twitter and on Facebook, and just share our content, share our YouTube channel. That's basically how we fund the whole operation. Twitter's a big one too. If you can get on Twitter, follow me at the Pangburn. We need more hashtag Team Pangburn people. We got a lot of great followers on Twitter right now that really stand up for reason and skepticism. So the more the better. But yeah, I'm really excited for the new events that are coming up. I spoke with one of the speakers on the phone today, and yeah, it's going to be this next one I'm going to be announcing is huge. Really excited for it.
So imagine this. So part of the way you orient yourself in the world of facts, objective facts, is through your senses. So you basically have 5 dimensions of triangulation, so to speak, to help you determine what's there in the objective world. And then you have this multi-layer structure that's partly biological and partly socio-cultural that enables you to distill that, but it can go astray, partly because it ages and becomes archaic, which is, and demented for that matter, which is partly your objection to the fundamentalist type.
Andrew, I would really be interested in that, and you should send me a DM on Twitter or through the Facebook Pangburn page, and the Oompa Loompas who helped me out will get that to me. I think it's a good idea.
This has been known for a very long time that this sort of thing happens. So what we do, the way we solve that, we have a solution to that. So partly the way we solve that is through articulated discourse, right? Because you have a way of looking at the world and I have a way of looking at the world, and we have to occupy the same space. So you're probably wrong about some things and I'm probably wrong about some things, and hopefully if we talk, we can sort out the differences and make things more stable.
Right.
So,
and I would put rationality right in that place.
Right,
that's why rationality is primary.
But we don't want to just make it more stable, Jordan. We want to get to the right answers. We just don't want a whole bunch of people believing nonsense and just feeling stable. We want to have these hard discussions, be eradicating nonsense belief systems and replacing them with better ideas. We don't just want to cater to everyone's ideas to make sure we come up with a system that helps everyone to live in harmony with believing nonsense. I know that's not exactly what Jordan's getting at here, but you know, I don't like the tone of, you know, you have your way of thinking, I have my way of thinking, we got to make it work in this. It's like, no, there's like, we just deal with claims and we have to apply logic to those claims and apply skepticism to them and come up with what are the best answers to these. And there's always going to be a better answer than there'll be a proposition, and there'll either be a better answer or there won't be. So we should deal with these propositions, take them head on, and try to get to the meat of this, and not be afraid to throw out traditions that are just nonsensical, right? And Jordan is arguing, I will give him this, Jordan is arguing for a more sensible view of God in a metaphorical truth version of God. He's not trying to argue for creationism or anti-evolution rhetoric based on old myths in an old archaic book that was written by Iron Age peasants. So I will give him that. Jordan is not a peddler of woo, like some of these people who are just peddling anti-science. Jordan is trying to make this narrative work with his understanding of science and his scientific worldview. So I think he's got some religious anxiety related to Christianity that he's trying to find a way to make it work with a scientific worldview. All right.
Problem, fair enough, but there's a problem with that too. And I think, see, all the times we've talked so far, you've been, I would say, the avatar of a scientific viewpoint, and I've been cast, let's say, as the avatar of a religious viewpoint. But I've actually thought this through scientifically a lot. And I can make a biological argument for all of this, and a developmental argument. So it isn't only rationality that does this. So this is the thing that was so cool about studying, for example, Jean Piaget. Because one of the things Piaget pointed out is that children engage in negotiation. They negotiate their reality just like adults do. But they don't do it only through articulated speech, and neither do adults. What children do is they get together and play. And this is why play is so important for children. That starts to happen when they're about 3 years old, because they can look outside their own idiosyncratic perspective at 3, and they can start to take someone else's viewpoint into consideration, which is what you have to do if you're going to play.
So Jordan's getting into clinical psychology, and man, there are seriously few out there that know the literature, the scientific literature better than Jordan. I tell you, he is a wealth of knowledge in this subject. This is where he really is great. The greatest, maybe.
And then what children do is they invent little fictional realities. That's what they do when they're pretending. And so they assign each other roles, and they assign a plot and a drama to the pretend play, and then they act it out. And in that action, they bring themselves into harmonious union, right? Which is the act of generating a game that everyone wants to play. And Piaget's observation was, and this is Nietzschean observation as well, that the morality that characterizes society isn't rationality top down, although it's partly that. It's also interactions that are, say, play-based and bottom up. And that's actually how it evolved to begin with, because animals generate societies that are functional, but they don't do it through rationality. They can't.
Yeah, and the play-based that Jordan is talking about is the beginning of working with art. These are artful expressions, and these are the things that really make humanity what we are. Let's go back to the chat here. What do we got here? Okay, Samuel Hood says, those pants are fire. I got to step up my game tomorrow. Yeah, I got quite a few pair of pants. Funny story is, like, I wear some pretty outrageous like pants and stuff. I just like wearing, I don't know what it is, but I like, if I'm gonna be like seen by public or something, I like wearing pieces of art. Like, I don't want to wear boring clothes. I just like conversational pieces of clothing to wear. I love wearing art and unique things. I like that. But like, I'll be like with Richard Dawkins at dinner, and we'd be like walking to dinner, and he's like looking at my pants, and like, I have these space pants that I try to wear for like every public appearance that I would do, and Richard's looking at those like, are those painter pants? Like, he thought they looked like, if you don't really look at the whole thing, if you're just looking at certain spots, it looks like it's just pants I've been painting in. And I'm like, no, see, Richard, it's the cosmos. And he's like, looks like painter's pants. But yeah, some of those speakers look at me with quite a crooked look when I'm wearing my special pants. Whatever. Everyone's a critic. Yeah, Zero Carton. Congrats. Congrats on the book. It is a great book. I've read chunks of it, but I want to get the audiobook and listen to it all the way through. Duncan D says, we're going to keep watching the same video until Christmas. Yep, looks that way. Maybe I should do a Christmas evening show and see if anyone shows up. How old is this debate? This is last July. Wait, yeah, last July 4th, I think this one was. It's in the comment section of the description section of the video. Andrew Thalpill says, would you ever consider doing something like, oh yeah, we talked about that already. Yeah, that's a great idea. Ted says, nice, congrats on the new events. Thank you very much. Yeah, they're going to be a lot of fun. going to really focus on skepticism. I want to promote skepticism around the world. It is the best foot forward. That's why that is the narrative of the new Pangburn promotion video there that I showed at the beginning of this feed. Share that guys around, or share that video around too, you guys. It helps the channel out a lot. What's on second says religion is arbitrary. Yeah, it's quite arbitrary. I mean, but there is some interesting art to be derived from the narratives and the stories of how religion has shaped history. There's important lessons to be learned there for sure. Andrew Thalpiel says skepticism is always necessary. Yes, definitely. And again, people mix up cynicism with this. They're like, oh, am I supposed to be skeptical when someone says pass the broccoli? It's like, well, no, that would be cynicism. If someone says pass that, or take that penny out of that imaginary fairy's hand and hand it to me, then you can apply skepticism to that claim and be like, well, I don't really know that fairies exist. Can you demonstrate that it's actually holding a penny and that there's actually a fairy there? That's all that skepticism is. Thank you guys so much for liking the stream. You guys are awesome. Cord Funk says religion is arbitrary, but so is nature. In which way is nature arbitrary, Cord? Cord Funk says, I grew up with a mother that was a Christian fundamentalist, and Jordan Peterson was the first person that made me revisit religion without a nihilist bend. Yeah, I mean, nihilism is not really... I mean, people get sucked into nihilism because they think that without religion there isn't really any meaning. It's like, no, you create your own meaning. There doesn't need to be this governing narrative that talks about everything in life that you need to follow. Okay, let's take on some more video here. We're doing really good today, guys. We're getting through some stuff.
Because they don't have rationality. They don't have articulated speech. They have something like...
Zero Curtain says, when does skepticism end in your view? Should you always be skeptic about every philosophy of thought? Well, yeah, I mean, skepticism, whenever someone, like the way I live with skepticism governing essentially everything, it's like when someone talks to me about a new idea or something they're interested in, they'll say, well, I think, let's look at Jordan Peterson's all meat diet. And if they make the claim, well, I've ever since I started just eating meat, you know, my depression has disappeared. My gingivitis has been eradicated, undetectable by the dentist. I'm losing lots of weight, and then, you know, I'll have my questions about, well, what do experts have to say about the diet and how it can affect your body? The people that really understand the detailed chemicals of diet and what's going on, the biology of it, and and how do you know that this isn't placebo? This effect it's having on you. Have there been any tests done to show that this is actually, you know, something that, because the mind can create a placebo that can almost trick you into believing that certain things that you're engaging in are helping you get better. I think the mind is powerful in that sense. Placebo can be a powerful thing. So yeah, you go through critical questioning. That's what skepticism is relying on, if someone's making a claim like, let's say if someone says all white people are racist, then you say well, you're going to have to demonstrate that claim, because that's quite an extraordinary claim, and how are you going to go about demonstrating that? This is a requirement of having someone demonstrate their claims that they are making, and this needs to start happening on all levels. If someone claims that so and so is a rapist, this doesn't warrant belief. This is a good case at where some people have really failed at trying to deal with this. Let's just say a woman makes a claim that so and so has sexually assaulted them. And there was this movement for this long time, and I think a lot of people still believe this, #BelieveWomen, like that the default position is to believe the proposition or the claim. And no, this couldn't be further from what you should be doing if you have a solid foundation in skepticism. You don't believe the claim to be true, but you treat, this is where humanism comes in, you treat the potential victim as though what they are saying is true. You treat the victim as though what they are saying is true. You do not treat the accused as though what they have said is true. Because if you do that, we haven't even seen the evidence. We haven't had a chance to verify these claims. And these claims should be expedited to verify these. If there is anything to them, and if there is something to them, they should be in front of legal teams to sort out, and judges if necessary as soon as possible. But the point is that the potential victim should be treated as though they are a victim of what they are claiming. But do not jump to conclusions, and you must presume the innocence of the person that's being accused in these cases. Let's see what we got here. I see some people getting going. Pangburn says, what happens if you encounter something that you really think is truth? How do you deal with truth? Is there truth then? What happens if you encounter something that you do really think is true? Well, if something is true, there will be evidence to prove that it is true. And sometimes it will require it will require work to prove your claim. But if someone's to say, I just turned off the light in the other room, which is on the other side of the property. Let's say I just turned on the barn light, which is on the other side of the property, and then they come back and I say, "Where's your evidence that you did actually turn that off?" It's like, then we're starting to get into cynicism, because you could just get up and walk your ass to the window or walk over to the barn and just investigate. And now, when you investigate, does that mean that they definitely, with 100% certainty, were the person who turned that light off? No, but you have a very, very good reason to believe that they are the ones that did in fact turn that off. If by truth zero you're talking about absolute certainty, I'm not sure that we can be absolute certain about anything. And I think the matrix hypothesis creates this problem. So when we're trying to demonstrate something to be true in the scientific sense, or in a logical sense, I think we're getting to 99.9999999% close to absolute certainty, but I'm not sure we actually can get there. Cord Funk says, random mutations happen in nature all the time. There might be a system to it, but not a system we can understand fully at the moment. Yeah, I mean, if there's a system that we can't understand at the moment, scientific models have to be built to attempt to understand the thing, but those scientific models must be based in evidence. And then Zero goes on to say, I agree with being skeptical, but I do believe that in the skepticism relies an end to seek the truth. And someday you have to draw the line of where you found the truth after thinking a lot. I don't think you have to draw a line at all. I think the way the scientific method works is that we build theories, and theories are the highest achievable level in science. And we build those theories based on the evidence of reality, and we create the models to help explain it. And but those models can change. This is why we call them theory. Those theories can change when new evidence is available. But science gives us the best model based on the current evidence that's available. Science isn't making claims of absolute certainty about what things are. Even as far as gravity or evolutionary theory, it's just this is what the evidence tells us is going on. Until more evidence comes along, this may or may not change. Thanks a lot for your questions, guys. Let's see. Let's crank through some more video here. Thanks for the likes. Keep those likes coming.
An embodied game. Now what happens, and this is a Nietzschean observation, he's the first person I learned this from, is our morality emerged from the bottom up through thousands, hundreds of thousands of years of shared games, let's say, and the interweaving of those shared games into something approximating a morality that we could all live within peacefully. That happened bottom up. And then what happened was, because we didn't know the mechanism behind that, because it's instantiated in our nervous system invisibly, we watched ourselves act, which is what we do, and then we told stories about that, because that's what we do when we watch ourselves act. And then we encapsulated the morality that evolved in the stories.
Yes, so Jordan's talking about the importance of storytelling, and Sam is sitting there thinking again, it's like, dude, I just asked you, we just talked about this. I think that's like, I assume that's what Sam is thinking right now. That's what I'd be thinking if I was sitting there. It's like, yeah, okay, we all understand. You're very passionate about this. We all understand that narrative played an important role in human evolution. This isn't something Sam disagrees with.
And that's the religious essence of the story.
I got 10 seconds. So we have to pivot to Douglas for an important question, but I would just say in response to that, Jordan, I don't...
Olympic organic yogurt, made in the Fraser Valley. Yep, right here.
Get your Olympic organic yogurt. Sports check.
I don't disagree with much of consequence in that. My concern, however, is that there's a reason why we differentiate childhood from adulthood, and all of us are stunted to some degree or another in a fairly perverse childhood. And the reason, I mean, what we confront now is a world largely populated by dangerous children, right, who are in their 5th and 6th decade of life.
You mean run by?
Populated and run by, yes. And if anything typifies the childhood of our species, in my view, it is religious orthodoxy. And insofar as we're breaking free of the orthodoxy part and getting something that's more scalable and can survive a more pluralistic and cosmopolitan world, it is because it is being winnowed at every point by rationality. And I think that at some point we could have a fully defensible, rational honoring of many of the things you think are essential, like the power of story, or the power of ritual, or the power of art that is focused on some sacred purpose. And the question is how to get there.
Right. Well,
but
hopefully
we have a point of order here.
That's one question.
Yeah.
But I want to hand over to the audience for Q&A. And for a couple of minutes, I've had a sign being waved at me saying Q&A, and we really should obey the sign.
Yes.
So I think what's going to happen is...
So basically that Sam just kind of summarized, again, the stories, I'm not saying that the stories are not important to humanity and then and we can build these structures of stories that have important meaning down to the deepest level of what it means to be human, or even the way we ought to be. And then Jordan says, yeah, well, I think that's why it's good to have these discussions. So yeah, these were weird proclamations, and just like Sam agreeing. It's strange that it's this part of the discussion has gone down this way. I think this is where Brett would have been good at coming in and being like, okay, wait a second, you guys already agree on this. Let's get to the meat of where we're in disagreement here.
We're going to use your computer.
Well, we're going to ask the audience first. I think that was what we decided, and you guess you guys get to vote by noise. There's an inflection point here. We can do one of two things, and I'll let the first people yell and then the second people yell. But the question is, we can either continue the discussion, or we can stop and go to Q&A. So the first thing we'll do is say, okay, how many of you would like us to stop and go to Q&A?
There's people actually booing.
Okay, second question. How many of you would like us to continue with the discussion?
Give us, but I think it's more about the two of you. Each of us, to one or another degree, has been described as a gateway drug to the alt-right. We've been attacked by people left of center as somehow inspiring or pandering to right of center, and in many cases far right of center ideas and ethical and pseudo-ethical commitments. I'm wondering if we can steelman the concerns that people have with us.
This will be awesome. You can start hearing people just starting to yell out, "Talk about this," just kind of in the distance.
A few minutes before addressing them. How do you view this reaction to your work? And
well, I'm happy to do that first.
Yeah.
Can I just say before I do? I was going to say it if we were going to go to audience Q&A. I understand, I was reminded today that there's still a blasphemy law in Ireland.
Well.
Am I right on that?
I await the police.
I'm right, aren't I? Yeah. In which case, can I just say that I'm not going to be happy if we leave the stage tonight and
In
you
handcuffs?
and I have not both committed blasphemy.
Right, yes, yeah.
So this is all like fun and games and joking, but this is something as a creative producer I'm always thinking about, because we're going into different countries and we're presenting these conversations where different laws. But this one in particular, Canada, up until just a couple years ago, when I was basically getting Pangburn going, Canada still had a blasphemy law in existence. And it was very strange because right when we kind of announced and the first event with Richard Dawkins and Matt Dillahunty, these two pretty prominent atheists, one obviously Richard being the world-changing atheist, was going to be coming to Vancouver to do these discussions, and obviously they were going to be talking blasphemy on stage. But literally, it was only like a month after we announced that event that all of a sudden I started seeing in the media that this was being talked about, the blasphemy law. And I really truly believe, and this is, I do think, and I guess my evidence would be we were creating a lot of conversation about religion at that time. That wasn't happening in Canada, and we were promoting it big time into the big cities of Canada to get as many people to come out to the event as possible. And a lot of conversations were filtering out of that online. So I like to believe that we had at least some hand in getting that conversation started. And just, maybe 2 months after we started promoting, I see this news article come out that Canada has finally eradicated the blasphemy law that has been around since Canada was formed. It was just really cool. And I remember talking to Richard for the first time on the phone, and he was like, Canada has a blasphemy law, and I was like, yeah, I know that, and I think I think I want to do something about that, because I think it's just, for lack of a better word, just dumb. Like, I just think it's just so archaic that it's still there. I actually didn't think that it was like even this serious, this thing that really existed before I started doing this work. But yeah, I remember Richard bringing that up, and I was like, yeah, well, we're gonna do this event, and people have done events like this before in the past in Canada. I wasn't the first, but I was like, yeah, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this big, and I hope we bring some attention to this. And yeah, then the law was eradicated. I thought it was kind of cool. I think we might have played a role in starting those conversations. So I think this stuff really gets people thinking and talking. I can't remember exactly what month it was, but it was in and around that time, and I think I documented it on social media through doing a video or something. I should try and find that, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
Okay.
And if Jordan would like to join in,
I prefer to do that in private.
we could make it a full house. I really do think we should be blasphemous.
I think I must have done that already, but I'll have to go to the tape on that.
Well, here's the thing. We've all had similar-ish experiences on that, and there are a number of people among our friends and colleagues, perhaps you might say, who've had it as well. And I think what's happening at the moment is that there's a set of tripwires that have been put across the culture. And for a long time, if you went across these tripwires, you died, reputationally speaking. Because of the nature of the media, new media, among other things, that sudden death isn't possible anymore. Or at least it's not always possible.
Right.
So, for instance, if the New York Times says that Jordan is a, sort of leading member of the Ku Klux Klan, it's not just that people don't believe the New York Times anymore. It's that they can go and find out for themselves that this is a lie. And that's a fundamental difference, and it means that people are surviving the tripwire experience. But there's a whole set of these tripwires, and I think they've been planted very strangely, among other things. I mean, the one I tripped on was the Islam one. I think to an extent it was the one you tripped on. Jordan, it was more to do with trans and pronouns was the first one. The great thing about this, by the way, is that once you survive the first tripwire, in my case, I sort of merrily jump along in no man's land, landing on IED after IED.
Right.
And strangely, I'm still here.
Yeah.
But you said I should steelman it. Here's what I think is probably happening. There is a fear that in this realm of uncertain values, which...
All right, I see lots of chat going on here. Let's get back here. I see Duncan Dees and Andrew Thopil are having quite the conversation here. Scott Lovenberg says, I love how these debates are in such good faith. Yes, good faith discussion. You couldn't be more right, Scott. Good conversations like this have to be done in good faith. For so long we've seen, and this is why I hate debates. Debates are just, you can have two people that really disagree with each other on stage. Like if you go over and watch Matt Dillahunty versus Jordan Peterson, and they go after the God proposition, you'll see those guys get heated and they engage, they strongly engage, but they still are engaging in good faith discussion. And formal debate structure doesn't allow for this. It's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. I can't find. I think it's completely useless. It entrenches people on either side, and no one's open to changing their mind. The good faith goes out the window. It's all about just trying to, like belittle or crush the opponent, even if it's not genuinely crushing them. As long as you appease the audience that is there to support you, it's this weird thing. I saw a comment here. Duncan Dees says to Andrew, how can one know that truth exists objectively? Ted says, dude, anyone see the latest South Park episode? That has nothing to do with that. Oh, Cord Funk says we had a blasphemy law in Norway as well up to 2015. Yeah, I mean the fact that these are being eradicated is just showing how quickly dogmatism is dying. Zero Carton says that's fucking awesome. I think he's talking about the story I was telling. Cord says they still have a travesty of hate speech law though. Yeah, hate speech. Hate speech does not exist. People will say they'll make a claim that you hate, but that doesn't mean the speech is hate. It just means that they are saying something you hate, and you should tell them the reason why you hate. Have conversations. Don't throw people in jail for speaking. Zero Carton says, seriously think this helped. I think it helped too. Andrew says, I don't think one can know whether something is objectively true. Well, that's the scientific method. I would say scientifically true colloquially tends to mean objectively true. But if we're talking objective truth with the requirement of 100% absolute certainty, I don't even play that game because of the matrix hypothesis, the potential that the matrix hypothesis may exist. And if it does exist, you can essentially write anything into the program to trick the program or to trick the things that are operating within the bounds of the program. And the laws are changed on a dime. It just, yeah. Let's see. You guys keep going. This is great conversation, guys. Really appreciate it. This is great. What are we at? 152. Okay, I think we won't do. Let's do one more stint of video here, and then we will wrap things up reading the last few comments.
We might concede at any rate that we're in. There is only one thing we all agree on. The one thing we all agree on is we mustn't become Nazis. Okay? Broadly speaking, that's the basis of our ethics. It's the only bit of history anyone knows, and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
So they think they're all over the Hitler thing.
Right.
Haven't got a clue, most of them. All they know is Hitler's a bad person. This is why, by the way, anyone doesn't like in politics is Hitler. It's like George W. Bush, Hitler. If you had any sense of historical reference, you might say Henry V, domineering father whose shadow he had to step out of, for instance.
Yeah.
But Henry V, Smith, who knows about that? So everything's Hitler. So if we agree that the one thing we're all meant to do is not become Nazis, you build these incredibly deep, big trenches around anything you think could be, as it were, something that would lead us back to that. The problem is that people who have done that trench building include people who are doing it for their own personal political gain. So they build a set of trenches around their political views, and they say, if you come near this, then you've trodden into that trench and you're a Nazi. Some of it is for short-term convenience, and I have no doubt that some of it is sincere. But the amount of lying about it makes me doubt that last bit. And let me add one other thing to that. One of the books I recommend people read most to do with politics is a brilliant book by Paul Berman, who I think you know as well, called Power and the Idealists. It has, by the way, the worst subtitle of any book. It's called Power and the Idealists.
Got disconnected there, guys. Oh, okay. We are connecting. Reconnecting. Okay, I think we're back. Sorry about that. We got
ELO and the hijackings in the late 60s and early 70s, and before you know it, one of Joschka Fischer's housemates is on the plane as it's on the tarmac, and he's separating out the Jews and the non-Jews. We've done it again.
Yeah.
The one thing we were meant not to become was the people standing on the ramp saying,
right or left,
that way, that way. And we did it. We went all the way around. So there's something about this that I just wish was better known. That it's not as damn easy as all that. Like, your enemies don't come with jackboots and swastikas like this.
No.
It's just not that easy.
No, they live inside you. That's really the case. So let me try the steel man approach.
Yep.
Okay, so the first thing that people assume about me is that I'm no fan of the radical left. And that's absolutely true. I am no fan of the radical left. And that's primarily because, there's a variety of reasons, but it's primarily because I believe that the radical left errs in insisting at every possible opportunity that the proper defining characteristic of each individual is their group membership. I think that that's, you do have a group membership. In fact, you have a whole plethora of them, which makes things quite complicated, as the intersectionalists have already figured out. But whenever someone brings a primary orientation to the world that is group-centered rather than individual-centered, I think they've already made a catastrophic mistake. And so I don't approve of the collectivists. Now, I don't approve of left-wing collectivists, and I don't approve of right-wing collectivists. But the right-wing collectivists haven't overrun the universities, and the left-wing collectivists have. So that's a distinct difference. Now, the left-wing collectivists enjoy acquiring a certain linguistic hegemony because they know that that's part of the way they can win the battle, and that's what they were trying to do when they passed compelled speech legislation in Canada, as far as I was concerned. So I made a video saying, I'm not going to abide by that because I'm not using the reprehensible linguistic maneuvers of collectivists who I detest. So now, when I did that, you see, it was a very strange thing for a Canadian to do because Canadians don't do that, partly because Canada works just fine. And so nobody comes up and says, waves the flag saying, look, we're wandering off a dangerous cliff here. And so then if someone does stand up and say that, then the first thing that all the other Canadians think and should think is that there's something wrong with that person. And that would be me. So then the question would be, well, what variety of things could be wrong with Dr. Peterson? That's
This is the way Jordan says that. That would be me.
a very long list, but the ones that might come...
That's actually a better subtitle than that.
Yeah,
Terrific title.
Yeah. So what happened was, I objected to the radical left, that was my perspective, but the people who objected to me or who were even critical of me or curious about me thought, okay, well, if Peterson isn't part of the left, then where the hell is he? And the answer could be, well, anywhere on the political spectrum, including Nazi. And of course, that's hypothetically true. And if I was a Nazi, then that would be really useful for all the radical leftists, because if you're a Nazi, as Douglas has already pointed out, we've already decided that you're a bad person. And if I was a bad person, then no one would have to listen to me. And so it was in the interests of the radicals whose positions I was disputing to cast me as a Nazi. But it was also a reasonable cognitive maneuver because there was some possibility, although it's infinitesimal given the tiny proportion of actual Nazis in our society, that I would in fact be one and have gotten away with hiding that at 2 major universities for 25 years. And also...
All right. I think we'll end with Jordan Steelman there. I think that was pretty cool. You guys, thank you so much for engaging tonight. Another shout out to, what was his name? Zero Carton was the big winner of the book, and the book was Douglas Murray's The Strange Death of Europe. You guys should read this one. Immigration, Identity, and Islam. Very provocative. Yeah, and follow. You should follow Douglas too, and on social media and stuff. He's very interesting. Yes, big announcements coming for Pangburn and my new live events. Very exciting time right now. I'm super pumped and just can't wait to get going. Yes, please come over to Twitter, you guys. Get on Twitter. Follow me at the Pangburn. It's great to have you guys there and engaging with my stuff. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course. Come over to Pangburn Inspire on Facebook. That's where the daily conversations happen. Some really cool conversations happen every day. Share our YouTube videos. Share everything you can to help promote Pangburn. I really appreciate everything you guys do. And again, thank you guys so much for engaging tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I think the next one will be Saturday. I think I'll do one Saturday night. So if you guys are around Saturday night, I'll be on. Usually I have a couple drinks if it's a Saturday night. So come stop by, have a few drinks for me if you're not doing anything. And again, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And it is I agree, Andrew. It is a great time to be alive. What a time to be alive this is. So good night, and let art and science inspire.